remember in my final year, I was terrified, I have to say. Definitely had the imposter syndrome. I was thinking, I'm never going to be able to remember all those formulas. What if somebody in the office asked me to calculate the weight of water in a cylinder, X by Y by Z? I'm not going to be able to remember that formula. What am I going to do? I'm going to be a complete failure. I was terrified. So I was wondering, what am I going to do? Will I go do another degree? Will I get started? Whatever. The other thing about me was I was terribly shy. I'm still shy, but I probably mask it reasonably now. But I was terribly shy. I couldn't bear to spend too much time with strangers, with people. It actually felt painful. I can remember one of my early interviews. The question came up, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So I said, in 5 years? Well, in 5 years, I'm going to be a deep expert in my specialist technical area. I want to go deep into the technology. I want to be the person that people call who knows the answer about his subject matter, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, well, what about management? Would you like to go into management? And I said, oh, no, management. I said, technology is what I love. I said, I understand machines. People are a bit of a mystery to me, so I'll stick with machines. And that was kind of how I felt about it. So again, here I am. All these years later, I work in human resources, and I'm a people manager. So as you can guess, I'm not a big believer in career plans. Mine didn't come about. And when I talk to people like myself in similar careers, similar stages of life, they always talk about they headed off in a completely different direction, followed their hearts, followed their passions, and ended up somewhere they would never have guessed. So that's been my experience, and I would guess a lot of you will have that story to tell in a few years. Okay, before I go on about that, let me just mention Google. So who's heard of Google? Okay, everyone. Tell me some Google products. What products do you use? Apps, okay. Docs. Gmail. Android. YouTube. Search engine. Yeah. So it's quite a diverse group of products. The company was founded 17 years ago by 2 Stanford engineers in a garage they call it, in a garage in Palo Alto. They never knew where they were headed. They never expected to have all those products to their name. In fact, they tried to sell the product for $100,000 and nobody would buy it. The answer they got was, well, who needs another search engine? So yeah, good move. It's the second time I've worked for an engineering company that was started by 2 Stanford engineers in a garage. I previously worked for Hewlett-Packard for 27 years. So very same story. When I left Hewlett-Packard, they had 320,000 employees, but basically it was started by 2 students in a garage. Things turned out very differently than they expected. So Google's been in Ireland for 11 years. You can see the statistics there. 3,000 employees, 65 nationalities, multilingual, highly educated, high achievers. It's pretty cool, I have to say. It's very diverse, very varied. Here's another quiz question for you. How many unique first names would you expect to have with a group of 3,000 employees? Let's hear a few guesses. 2,000? How many unique first names with 3,000 employees? How many? 3,000? No, there's more than one Brian. Okay, any more guesses? 500? Yeah, I would have guessed 250. There's more than 1,500 different first names. I think that's quite incredible, actually. But it shows the kind of diversity that we have in Google and in Ireland now generally. So it's a very diverse workforce. Okay, so keep paying attention. I might ask another question later. Okay, so what do we do in Ireland? Well, we're the EMEA headquarters, the Europe, Middle East, and Africa headquarters. Sales, marketing, finance, HR, and tech ops. Mostly it's a sales, marketing, and head office function. Our main engineering centers are London and Zurich, although we do have quite a bit of engineering in Dublin as well. Okay, that's a bit about Google. So this is my last slide. I was just going to talk about my learning principles. So I was thinking as I was coming here today, I'm going to be talking to all these really young, really smart people, way smarter than me. My career plan didn't work out the way I planned. So what can I tell you that's going to be useful? Or, you know, if I was your age starting again, what would I wish I had learned quicker? And that's kind of how I approach this. So what would I have liked to have known first? Well, as I say, I wanted to go deep on one specific area. I've had a career in customer service. I've been a sales manager. I've been a general manager. I've been a HR manager. I've been a supply chain manufacturing manager. I've been a consolidation manager, consolidating businesses. And now I work in people operations. People operations is Google speak for HR. And I bring supply chain expertise to it. So we think of HR a lot like supply chain. Last year we had more than 3 million resumes submitted. We did a few 100,000 interviews, and we hired 15,000 people. And most of the people we hired didn't actually apply. So it's a pretty impressive supply chain, actually, to get through those numbers every year in a kind of a robust way. So that's why I'm doing engineering in Google. The reason I'm doing it is because the reason I was asked to do that job was because I had a breadth of experience. I'd been in supply chain, I'd worked with customers, I'd worked in manufacturing, I'd scaled new operations, I'd shown that I was versatile by working in different functions in different countries, and they wanted somebody with that kind of fungibility or adaptability. So I would encourage you to build breadth of experience into your resume. I would say for the first 10 years of your career, don't worry about promotion. Ignore promotion. Look to get lots of different experiences. Fail often. You know, we recommend people work in a number of different geographies, a number of different functions, a number of different business models, and that they learn to be adaptable. That means that you've got to keep starting again in new functional areas, which is tricky, but it really builds resilience, robustness, flexibility. So I recommend that. The way one of my managers used to draw the analogy, he said, don't start a career like a sunflower. A big head and a narrow stalk, because you're going to be blown over in the first gust of wind. He said, make sure you first build a broad base. So that's what I would recommend as well. Change job every 2-3 years. Work for lots of different managers, different teams. You learn a lot from working with brilliant people. So work with brilliant people. Second thing is be inspired. Okay? So you might say, okay, so how am I going to be inspired? I love working for a founder-led company. So I was in California last week. Larry and Sergey, who run Google, they still come to work every day. Their enthusiasm is infectious. The money is not important. That's not what they're there for. They're there because they see they have a window of opportunity to make a big impact on the world. I feel a little bit of that excitement every day, actually. I love my job. I love being part of Google. I love being part of the team. And it really is inspiring for me. But, you know, I think I've been able to tell that story most of my life. I was inspired in HP as well. So I think, you know, work for a company that inspires you, or work for a team or a department that inspires you. Understand the impact that you're having. Be inspired by your manager and your team. And if you're not in a place where you can do that, move. Life is too short sort of to hang around in a place where you're not inspired. Okay, humility and integrity. I guess it sounds very simple. It's not. You've got to stay humble. Don't let success go to your head. People don't like working with people who are arrogant or whatever, so stay humble. As you build your personal brand, make sure that humility is part of it. We're very lucky. We're all very lucky here. We're all healthy. We're educated. We're privileged. We're doing well. So we should be grateful for that and have that part of our humility. Also, integrity is very important. What do I mean by integrity? Honesty is part of it. Openness, truthfulness. It takes a while to build your brand, to build your reputation. It only takes a moment to destroy it. So build it and be very careful with it. Always be honest, own up to your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, we all screw up, but if you cover it, you don't get the lesson, and people know. So, own up to your mistakes. It's making mistakes, screwing up is fine. It's the only way you learn, actually. Okay, next thing, quality gets noticed. So I heard a saying years and years ago that do a good job and people will notice and good things will happen. And I think that's a fundamental truth. Don't worry about managing optics or promoting yourself. Just do a good job. People will notice and good things will happen. And as I say, I would always say ignore promotion. It happens in its own good time. Just be proud of the quality of your work. These are all simple things. It took me a little while to internalize them, but they're important. The final one here, I think, is really important. The deep end. This, for me, is the most fundamental thing, is you learn at the deep end. You learn by making mistakes. So a good analogy is if you tell a child, don't put your hand on that, it's hot. What are they going to do? They're going to put their hand on it and they're going to burn themselves. And they're going to remember being burned. They may not quite remember so vividly what you said, but they'll remember being burned and they'll know, don't touch the cooker when it's on, it's hot. You have to make mistakes to really internalize the lesson. Unfortunately, that's how it works. You'll recognize it from the textbook, but you'll really learn it and internalize it by making the mistake. So make lots of mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. I know in Google, we welcome it. If you're not experimenting, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. You're not challenging yourself. You're not showing the courage enough. So be courageous, make the mistakes, stop, analyze the mistake and say, okay, what did I learn from that? Because that's when you get the value from a mistake, is you acknowledge that you made it, and then you learn from it. And that also builds your integrity, that you acknowledge the mistake. I've made a lot of mistakes. And of course, every time you change career, and I have a few times, you go from being an expert to knowing nothing, and you make lots of mistakes. But it's a great way to learn. One of the other times I remember learning was my boss told me on a Wednesday that I needed to be in Manchester on Monday to deliver a week-long course in a subject I had never learned. And I thought he was kidding. I said, you can't realistically expect me to learn the material to teach people for a week-long course between now and Monday. He said, Brian, I wouldn't ask you if it wasn't necessary. The customers have all booked their travel. They've paid for the hotel. They've paid us. They're coming. Someone's going to be there and they're going to teach this course. He said, and you're the only option. Now, flattering, but I said, there's no way I can learn this course between now and then. But actually, I learned an amazing lesson. You don't realize how fast you can learn until you're in a situation like that. And the other thing I learned is that the best way to learn is to prepare to teach. Your focus is incredible. When you say, the next time I hear this material, I'll be teaching it. You're really able to take it in. It's a trick I use ever since. But that was probably the deepest end. It was a terrible shock, nearly killed me. But I was so much stronger after it. I knew a new way to learn, and I knew that I could do something like that. I don't tell that story to say that I'm exceptional. I say it to illustrate that we're all exceptional. We all have exceptional abilities, but you don't find them until you're drowning. When you're dropped in the deep end and you have to survive, and you have to pull off amazing stunts and dig deep into your creativity, that's when you're learning lessons. And that's what you need to do. Keep jumping in the deep end. When you've figured it out, it's time to move. It's time to scare yourself all over again. So that's what I would say to you. Keep making those mistakes. They're very valuable learning exercises. And it's okay to make them. So that's my story. Let me pass on to the next speaker.